He makes everything better. He makes everything better. He is with us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. How are you, buddy?
Good evening from Las Vegas, gentlemen.
Hey, as far as these awards go, I mean, there's really no surprises. I mean, back-to-back winners as far as managers of the year go. Back-to-back winner in one of the Cy Young Awards, certainly with Skubal. I think everybody felt like Skeens was going to win this as well. So it seems like most of the intrigue centers around the MVP race, which we'll get to. But I can't remember. So you voted for MVP, but not for Manager of the Year, right?
I voted Manager of the Year.
Not MVP.
I voted Rookie of the Year.
But you're not voting MVP.
And so I am not an MVP voter this year. So no MVP and no Cy Young. And in full disclosure, as I promised I would say, as I promised I would share with our listenership here today, I did vote on my ballot for the Manager of the Year. I voted John Schneider number 1, Stephen Vogt number 2, and Dan Wilson number 3. So I voted for John Schneider 1. Of course, Stephen Vogt was the winner. I had Dan Wilson in my top 3. The last of the winners, as I believe we could describe it.
The worst of the best.
The worst of the best.
Just say it came in third.
I prefer to more charitably say the last of the top 3 or the last of the winners as opposed to the worst of the best. It just hits a little different, I would say.
Yeah.
But all 3 guys did amazing jobs. Stephen Vogt, hard to argue with that, right? Of course, the former Mariners coach, he ends up being the man that wins it back-to-back years. And what he did to bring his team back for that double-digit deficit against the Tigers, win the division, extraordinary. So there's no wrong answers anywhere around here. I thought that what John Schneider did from beginning to end to win the American League East, still I think the toughest division to win in the American League, top to bottom, coming off of a last-place finish in 2024. I just thought that what he did was the most impressive beginning to end. Obviously, Vogt's second half was what tipped the scales in his favor, but all 3 great cases. I think Dan Wilson, what he did, and listen, I think his work with this team and getting this group to believe, finding ways to very successfully integrate 2 major bats that were acquired at the deadline. Really, I think on the fly, adjusting some bullpen roles. I realized Game 7 didn't work out in Toronto, but of course the ballots were in long before that. And by and large, I think he did an improved job of handling his relievers as the season went along. And listen, he got the most out of a lineup that at times was inconsistent. So I think for a lot of different reasons, I felt very comfortable with my top 3. Glad that Dan Wilson was in it, and maybe if the Mariners win the division again next year, he'll be the best of the winners. He'll be the most of the greatest. He'll be number 1 on the list there.
The most
for
of the
AL
greatest.
Manager of the Year.
What are you thinking about AL MVP now? I know we've talked about it so much, but where are you now?
We have, and I don't know if we'll get maybe later on in our conversation to what Buster Posey told me yesterday. Of course, Posey, future Hall of Fame catcher who is also the president of baseball operations of the San Francisco Giants. It was actually the first question I asked Buster yesterday. I said, "Hey, Buster, I got to get your thoughts. It's a former MVP. What do you think about the MVP race in the American League?" And he gave very strong words of support for Cal Raleigh.
Yeah.
It seems to me to be, and there is no exit polling on which we can base this. Okay, I've got no inside intel, but it does seem as though the conventional wisdom is that Judge will win, and certainly Aaron Judge, a very deserving winner if he wins it. I think Cal Raleigh would be a very deserving winner too. I would have cast my ballot for Raleigh. I just think that the historic nature of his season as the leader and the engine of a division champion, what he did on both sides of the ball, no pass balls during the course of the regular season, all of those things, I would have put as Cal Raleigh as my choice. But there are 2 correct answers on this one, in my opinion. It seems as though that there's this groundswell that it's going to be Judge, and if it is, that's great. I think Raleigh's season is getting a lot of recognition, even if he doesn't win the award. And maybe it just sort of, if he doesn't win it, guys, maybe it perhaps feeds into even more of that aura of unfinished business for what will be, I know, a very, very resolute group of 2026 Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I've been saying I think Judge is going to get it, and it's hard to say, oh, he doesn't deserve it. He does. He does deserve it. I think Cal deserves it just a shade more based on the position he plays and the demands placed on him and the production that still was evident. But, I'm not a voter, so I feel like they're leaning toward Judge as well. I hope to be wrong, and we'll find out. Tell people what goes on out there at the GM meetings. What's happening? What's the conversation? And is any of the conversation, and maybe this is more at owners' meetings, about a potential work stoppage?
Yeah, so good question. I'll answer the second part first. There's anxiety, right? In different conversations that I have, whether it's front office folks, agents, it'll come up where some will say we're not really sure what's happening after next season, and all I know right now, which is about all I'm going to know for the next year, is that there are certainly differences between the sides. That's not exactly breaking news. And we'll probably get a fuller picture of it all around this time next year, and where the different positions are, how much there is difference of opinion among the ownership levels. And I think that's the big question is, are the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers on the same page from a standpoint of the long-term viability of the game and thoughts about it as the smallest markets are. And that's something that's going to get played out, I'm sure, behind closed doors in the coming months. And obviously finding ways to make sure that, and this is an important time of year for this, that players are getting compensated what they believe to be their fair market value to be. And are smaller market teams getting more into the marketplace? Are we seeing some of the teams that haven't spent as much? It would certainly help those that want to argue that the game is still in a good place and a fair marketplace to compete. It sure would help if we saw some spending from the smaller clubs or the mid-tier clubs to say, listen, we can compete and we have a chance to go toe-to-toe with the giants of the game and win. That's I think part of the conversation right now. But there has been a report, by the way, from The Athletic that there are some preliminary talks going on between MLB and the MLBPA, which is great. It's important to get out in front of these issues. Of course, the Olympics are there as a far away, but not too far away issue for 2028 to think about. So there are some significant things where you have the conversations early, and hopefully it allows the sides to see each other a little more clearly. And let's be honest, coming off of a great postseason. That was a phenomenal month of October baseball. A lot of it in Seattle, of course, Toronto, LA, a lot of great storylines. I hope that the people in charge of the sport recognize that, see it, seize upon it in a positive way, and realize that any sort of work stoppage is not ideal at this point in time, especially when you consider all the momentum we're seeing for the sport. But the other part of the question, what do we do here? There are organized hours of availability for the AL and NL GMs that speak in a ballroom, basically, where we get to interview them. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, Scott Boras does his annual State of the Union, which is always a very entertaining and pun-filled extravaganza.
Does he say anything of substance? Because I feel like he's a guy with a lot of words, and you walk away going, I don't know exactly what he just said there.
Yeah, so I'll say this. Scott rarely breaks news when he does these sessions, but he does say things that are newsworthy, and you can sort of gauge which teams and which owners are on Scott's good side by he probably is not. If you are walking up to him saying, you look at his top players like Pete Alonso. So if teams are lining up to give Pete Alonso $500 million, Scott's probably not going to be dropping puns about your team left and right. But if you're withholding, if he perceives you to be not spending what your market size suggests it should, then you get ready for some puns. And he has been like he's basically working with writers, I'm sure, that are as capable as John Mulaney on Saturday Night Live to write some of these puns about. He had a couple different ones. He was like referencing Dunkin' Donuts with the Red Sox. He was referencing Detroit and saying "sigh" instead of pizza for Little Caesars Pizza. I mean, this is like next level stuff with the puns, and I always get a good chuckle out of it.
Hey, there's a perception out here that he does not like the Mariners organization, and that there's a rift between him and the organization. Are you aware of anything like that? I haven't heard any. I've heard whispers about, well, he's hard to deal with, and they don't like to. I don't know what's true there. Can you clarify any of that?
Yeah. So I'll say this. I think I remembered hearing that. That Howard Lincoln said something in 2001 about it. That's 2001 is a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't think Howard Lincoln's opinions in 2001 are necessarily the opinions expressed by the current Mariner front office or ownership, for that matter. So I tend to think that that's a little bit overrated.
Okay.
Do I think the Mariners are going to sign Pete Alonso? The odds are probably against them. I would say no. I also, but I wonder, Bob, there's a really good third baseman out there, a good free agent represented by Scott Boras. His name, I got it on my list here, Alexander Bregman of the state of New Mexico. I don't know. He's a good player, Bob. I don't know. He's on my list. I said things to talk to Stelton about. Yeah. Would you accept a former Astro on the team? I think it's right there. We talk about lists and checking it twice. It's like number one thing. Alexander Bregman. Would Stelton approve? Yes or no?
I would have to. I told Dave, this is Dave's biggest wish come true. If Alex Bregman comes here, not because he makes the team better, just that I told him if Bregman were to come to town and we were to sit down and interview with him, I would have to come clean with how I've talked about him, which I would.
Yeah, and I told him I would be fanning the flames. I'd be like, oh, man, this guy, he really, he literally said he wants to punch you in the face. So,
I mean,
it might be the only interview we ever did with him, obviously.
So
JP likes it.
What we're going to have to do, I mean, I've got this whole thing in my mind now. So Alex becomes a Mariner. I'm going to talk to Tim Hevley. We're going to make sure that Bob gets to have remember the old Helen Thomas seat at the White House press briefings? We're going to have the Stelton seat front and center for the Bregman press conference right there, ready to go. First question, Mr. Stelton, the microphone belongs to you. So Alex, anyway, you may have heard on Seattle Sports 710, there's some different comments I've made over the past. But that would be interesting. It'd be entertaining.
Yeah, it
again,
would.
Probably not the most likely outcome.
Yeah.
But man, we're not allowed to root. But I'll be honest, just among friends, I'm kind of rooting for this outcome. I think it'd be a lot of fun if it ended up being that way.
You and Dave.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Dave and I are on the bring Bregman to the Northwest train.
That's right. That's right. President and vice president.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, just to be a little bit negative, this Clase and Ortiz thing, and I thought it was ironic that the meetings were in Vegas because this all has to do with gambling. But it seems like, number one, that, you can probably eliminate that by the prop bets are for, I think, Bob, you were saying, the most degenerate of gamblers, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, as far as these guys getting prosecuted, I mean, I don't know how you prove that or anything, just kind of a scare tactic. But it really is the answer for a lot of whenever we say, what could bring the NFL down? What could bring Major League Baseball down or, NBA? The answer is always if the fix is in. I mean, if it's a gambling thing and there's a predetermined outcome, that's the one thing that would kill it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, is MLB, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of like a scare right now, but I don't see these guys getting, convicted or anything. But what's your thoughts around that? And as far as the gambling goes, I mean, it just seems like it's bad for the sport for sure.
Sure. And I think a few things there. Number one, it is of the utmost concern for the sport. I think that because now sports gambling is legalized and there is sort of cooperation and agreements that exist between sports leagues and the legal betting entities that exist in our country, that there is information that can be tracked. And when there is irregular betting activity on a prop bet, on an over-under and that sort of thing, that gets flagged and that gets attention from the gambling regulation that goes on here in Nevada. So that's, I think, a couple things. Number one, it would have been naive, probably, in retrospect, to think that we would have legalized sports gambling without some level of issues coming up like this, because I think it's entirely possible that similar things have gone on in the past in different venues, different sports, different times, but there was no way to track it because everything was in the shadows.
Right.
Now that it's all done on your smartphone with Lord knows how much of your data attached to everything you do, that it's all out there now in the public. And I certainly everybody who pays attention to anything, I think we all have to realize now, or any player, any executive, any agent, anyone, you all realize how high the stakes are now, and the fact that you could be giving away your livelihood over what, and for whom and why.
Right.
And so I think that unfortunately, people make bad choices, and clearly I can't speak to whatever's going to happen in the legal process because I don't know. But clearly some poor decisions have been made along the way that are damaging in a very micro level. These individuals, families, the Cleveland Guardians, Major League Baseball at large. It's not a great look, to say the very least. And just as someone that cares about the game, I have to hope that this is something that people will learn from, that there will be rigorous communication in spring training and all times a year about what the rules are, learn the rules, know the rules, have them communicated thoroughly. And obviously MLB this week did take the step of limiting the amount that you can place on a prop bet, which is good. I mean, this is an issue that has a somewhat, and I stress somewhat, proximate cause, which are the availability of the low-hanging fruit of the prop bet. They've addressed this, and I think now it's incumbent on the league and everybody to continue to be very strident and very detailed in enforcing these rules. The one thing that I'll say on behalf of whether it's MLB or the union, no one can say that this stuff is being swept under the rug and people are not paying attention to it. Clearly, the league is investigating it. That's still open. The federal government's now investigating it. This is out in the open. It is there for everybody to see and understand as to what's going on. The indictment, you can read it, 20 some odd pages. It's there. I mean, so the information and the rules are now known, and it's incumbent on the people that are involved in the sport. And again, people that are around the players in the sport. If there's one of many lessons here for all players involved in pro sports, sometimes you got to keep the circle around you pretty tight. And keep asking yourself as you grow older in life, are the people around me those that have my best interest in heart, or are they trying to benefit and profit off of who I am? And I think that is a difficult lesson, but it's one that I think is related to what's going on here.
Should they find that these players are in fact guilty of what they're being accused of at this point, what do you think baseball does? I mean, circle back to the Astros and Bregman and everything. They did nothing. They did nothing to them. They fined the organization. They took draft picks. Players didn't spend a cent in fines, didn't spend a day of suspension. Nothing happened to them. So they had them dead to rights and did absolutely nothing about it in the way of punishment to those that actually perpetrated. That was another outcome that was a bit fraudulent, if you ask me. I mean, they cheated their way to victory, to a World Series, no less. So how different might they attack this issue?
I mean, to me, Bob, the rules are very clear about this, and whether it's Pete Rose, whether it's a player within the last couple of years by the name of Tucupita Marcano, who, if you are found to be placing bets, if an investigation finds that a player, manager, coach, anyone who is in a position to impact a Major League Baseball game, if it is found that they are placing bets on games in which they have a duty to perform, that's the key thing, a duty to perform, which clearly in this case they do. And if they're found to have been involved in gambling activity on those games in which they have duty to perform, past precedent suggests that they will be stuck with a permanent ban. That is what the standard has been. Again, I can't speak to what the commissioner might be thinking about in a particular case right now, but the standard is as ambiguous as the new age of sign stealing was within that investigation in 17, 18, which again included other teams that were investigated. that was a time of some ambiguity about what the rules were and what the standard practice was, if you will. There is zero ambiguity about this one, which is if you are involved in gambling activity on a game in which you have a duty to perform, the standard has been permanent ineligible list placement. That is as clear as a precedent as there is really in Major League Baseball.
I was seeing online the other day on Twitter or whatever with Skubal the idea that the Tigers would entertain trading him. Is there anything to that?
Well, you're asking the right guy on the right day, because I spoke with Tigers GM Jeff Greenberg, and I asked him 2 questions about this exact topic, and he did not give me an illuminating answer to either of them. So so let the record reflect. I gave him the chance to say, no chance, we're not listening, he's not going anywhere. He was given 2 opportunities to say that, and he did not say that. So I'm reading between the lines here a little bit.
Why would they do that?
I think that, they would do it if they look at his situation and the fact that there is zero indication that they're going to sign him long term. That you then have to say, okay, if we're not going to be able to sign him after this year, is there a way that we could trade him somewhere and get back enough young players that allow us to still compete in 2026 while trading Tarik Skubal? It's a high bar because they're not going to punt on next year. They're too good of a team.
Right.
So we'll see. Now, the one thing I will say is this. Could they trade Skubal for prospects and then go out there and sign a Ranger Suarez or a Framber Valdez? Again, they're not as good as Skubal. Are they 80% as good as Skubal? Maybe. And so I think that becomes a very interesting possibility for the Tigers to sift through, and we'll see. The final point I'll make about this is a lot of the arms that you saw the Tigers throw out there against the Mariners. Skubal, free agent after 26. Mize, free agent after 26. Flaherty, free agent after 26. So these guys are all about to be gone. So the Tigers, on some level, they have to try to care for what the long-term rotation looks like. And you trade the best pitcher in the game, you could do that. I'm not saying I endorse it, but that would be the rationale.
Wow. All right. Great stuff, John. As always, we appreciate you, my friend. Have fun out there, and we'll talk again next week.
But love the conversation, guys. We got I think the co-chairs of the Bregman to Seattle campaign are here on the show.